easy. When my father traveled, I remember that we were still in Morocco. We went. The Rebbe said the day after Yidal Nissen was a kultze yechidus. I'm short for all the guests that came, and whoever went in, the Rebbe gave a present. The Haggadah Shel Pesach was reprinted that year, still the old style, before they made it, and all the Pirushim on one page, older. And the Rebbe gave to everyone that came in, to whoever gave, and the Rebbe signed his name, Mem Shneerson, in the back. That was a present that the Rebbe gave. Here's something very interesting. And again, I heard it wasn't only my father. When my father came in, the Rebbe gave him, because the Rebbe was leaving only one. Here's an amazing thing. The Rebbe told him, "Das ist war dein Feuer. Deine wirst du kriegen, was ist." We almost think maybe that's a real Pachi bunny. That's not the way he looked at it. Never recognized. You traveled to the Rebbe for Yidal Nissen. Who stayed back to prepare that when you come back there should be a Pesach? Somebody did. Your wife. I heard later on, because when I read that story, I know some people will take it back. I think it's a very important point that I was trying to bring up. Despite all this that you came and all that, but who allowed you to come? Are you able to come? Because somebody stayed back to prepare for Pesach. And that's, and what's amazing, what happens to be is, this is quite a few years later, since my father passed away in Tafshin Dalet, and my mother is still in Morocco. That's an amazing thing on its own, beyond any understanding. Chaim B'chaim. We should be able, I think all these agashim, all these feelings, it's a kind of a challenge. Some of us, I remember when my father would talk about his agashim, it's unbelievable. Things that they went through early years. I remember I met somebody that told me he remembers Yidal Nissen, I think was Tafshin Tezvav, maybe Tezayin, I could be wrong in the years. Who heard of Yidal Nissen? Very few people. Yidal Nissen, that was birthday. What are you talking about? It's a few days before Pesach. You need to be busy getting ready your house for Pesach. And this guy told me he remembers walking on Kingston Avenue, early morning Yidal Nissen, and he sees 3 guys. They're making kulas on Kingston Avenue. One of them was my father, Yosha Mendel. I think the other one was Ichi Springer. Whoever. In those days, this was a whole chiddush, it was a whole new thing. Hey, Yidal Nissen. In those early years, it was a whole different story. All these agashim to give over, to talk about the other generations. It reminds me of a very interesting story. It was a Tafshin Tezvav. The Rebbe spoke a Sikha. I can tell you the exact date. And the Rebbe said it's very important for Bachrim that they shouldn't think about tachlis. They shouldn't think about what's going to be, how I am going to have income, and what's going to be. Well, we are so worried in our days. Fine. The Rebbe said it's very important that Bachrim to find themselves in Temchat Mimi, in Yeshiva. They shouldn't think about Tachlis. So after the Rebbe Fablein, a few Bachrim sat down. And those that know in those days, it was unbelievable. The Fablein is at Twanan. Whenever you had an occasion, the Bachrim Fablein amongst themselves. Thursday night. I'm going off subject, but my father always would tell me this interesting story. They were Fablein. Father had a room. It became later the Cheder HaAnhala, the David's room, until today that's the Anhala's room upstairs at 77. In the third floor, they were very worried that somebody should be in the building. They were afraid to be left alone at night. So they wanted very much that somebody should be sleeping in the building. So they looked for a volunteer. When my father heard that, he got very excited and he volunteered to be the one to sleep in 77. They gave him a room. Gave him a room upstairs. We're later on, when the Rebbe appointed my uncle of David, Yoel, they should be part of the Anhala after the whole story of Tafshin and Zayin. They needed a place where the Anhala should meet. And then when the Rebbe established Tzach, we should be. So my father said, I have a room, my bedroom should be the place. And as of today, this is the Cheder HaAnhala. He told me a very interesting story. It was an Asar B'Tevis. I do not remember. I think it's of design. I remember. And the guys were upbringing, and they were saying a lot of l'chaim. And looks like they were making a lot of noise that the Rebbe was able to hear in his room. It looks like it was disturbing. The Rebbe picked himself up, walked out of the room, and he's walking down the hall to find out what's going on. My father says he, after quite a lot of time, he felt that he has to go relieve himself, to throw up. So he's going out of the room, and as he's going out of the room, it's 11, 12, he sees the Rebbe coming down. And the Rebbe is walking, and he's kind of starting to walk backwards towards the room, and he's hoping and hoping, because in the room, he says, Yoshemen was already without socks and without shoes, he was already making kulis, and all the other guys, it was already, and he says it was mamish amazel, that the Rebbe stopped all by the entrance, and he said, "Vos kum davor?" And he turned back, and as the Rebbe was going back to his room, this was Matzei Asar B'Tevis. The Rebbe is looking and he sees a bacher. He's not hand smooth anymore, like a lot of them, Shalom Berbishetsky, with a towel on his shoulders, and the Rebbe seems like, what it looked like, and that was the case, he's going now to break his fast. This is 12, who knows what time. That's when he's going to wash. As the Rebbe looked at him and says, yes, geht mir sicher fasten? Now you're going to break the fast? But the Rebbe turned around and went back to his room. For my father was a big relief, because if the Rebbe walked into the room, he would have seen what's going on there. The next day, Rabbi Chabakov called in my father, and called in Rabbi David, an important message. Mehayen Vahala, die alles nur verbringen, sondern die finden an anderen Ort. And they found a place, 1267 Eastern Parkway, where later on, anyone remembers Sassovo? On the bottom, you think Sassovo? Unten? Huh? 1267, before all the Taylor, all the way there, Unten. There were no steam there. I remember winter time, my Zayda Chaimil Azimov came, and I went with him to Costa by Sloan. It was so cold, no steam, no nothing. But anyways, that's where they found themselves. They started to Fabrenga over there. But anyways, after that Sikha that the Rebbe said, the Bachrim shouldn't think about Tachlis. That's the ultimate goal. So the Bachrim of Fabrenga, and they made this between themselves up. Think about this. They're going to write it to the Rebbe. They're taking on themselves not to think about Shidduchim till the Rebbe says. There was my father told me not too many customers, but 5, 6, 7 Bachrim. They signed a letter to the Rebbe. Zayvi the Rebbe gesagt, a Bachrim shouldn't think about Tachlis. We're not going to think about Tachlis. And when the Rebbe says, now how are they going to know? How are they going to know? So very interesting. At that time, you go into Yechidus for your Yom Huledes. So if the Rebbe by Yom Huledes gave you a bracha for his stadlus, that you should, I say stadlus. You should do shidduchim. Get settled. Huh? Get settled. So that was a hint. That was a hint that you should start doing shidduchim. Tavshin Tezayin. Tavshin Yudzayin. My father goes in on Yechidus. Not a word. He's not a young bacher. Father was born Tavish Sadi Gimel. Happens to be next week, 90. So, the Rebbe didn't say a word. Happens to be, at that time, there was a known lady from Israel that came to visit. Her name was Chayichke Goldschmidt. Nachum Goldschmidt's Rebbe. She is walking on Kingston Avenue, she sees my father, she starts screaming, label, label! Ich hab a Shidduch von dir. So my father says, ich trach nicht dir wegen Shidduchim. Ich bin erst gewesen bei Rebbe, und der Rebbe hat gar nicht gesagt, so bis nächste Jahr Yom Huledes nicht darüber zu reden. There's nothing more to talk about. This Chayichke, she hold herself as part of the family, based on her. Nothing stops her. She from there went to the Rebbe's room, knocked on the door, and walked into the Rebbe's room. Anyone that knows her, she was a real case. She goes into the Rebbe and she says to the Rebbe, I can't believe what just happened. I stopped this bacher and I offered him a shidduch and he says he can't because he didn't hear from the Rebbe. Is that true? The Rebbe smiled and he says, kannst du ihm sagen, was hat dir gesagt? Please repeat. And he says that the Rebbe never said. The Rebbe just smiled. Just smiled. She walked out of there. She didn't succeed. Tavshin Yud Zayin, Tavshin Yud Ches, 25, almost nothing. Gershon Mendel already got an answer for his studies and the others. When he went in on Yechidus, Tavshin Yutes, the Rebbe says, no excitement whatsoever. The Sechadon, everything, no I'm emotional. The Rebbe says, Hatzlacha diyom itistadres. Finish. That's it. So he understood that this year he has to figure out. He said it was wonderful. You know what I mean? Imagine such a thing. You don't have to worry about nothing. When the Rebbe tells you to get married, you're going to get married, and you stay and be a bachar. Those years, and there's a special thing that happened those years, and that is the Likutei Sichos. The Rebbe started to be Magia, then it was called Teichen Inyanim. There was a Vad Lechazor Azdach. In charge of it was my uncle David. And my father with a few Bachrim. Nachman. I don't remember who the third one. I don't remember who the third. And the idea was to be in charge, to make sure that the Bachrim go Shabbos evening to find shuls and Chazal Chassidus. They came up with an idea, this Bachrim, that everyone, it's almost like a Hakel idea, that everyone should Chazal the same Sicha. So let's pick a Sicha from the Rebbe, and everyone will Chazal the same Sicha. So they went to the Bill, and they asked him, prepare a Sicha. Father told him it wasn't easy to get from him that he should do it. By then he did it. He prepared a Sicha. And that first Sicha that was prepared was a Sicha of Shavuos. Baneinu Arevim Ba'adeinu. Remember that Sicha? It's a very interesting Sicha. The Rebbe says it's not your teachers, it's not your rabbis, it's not your leaders. Baneinu Arevim Ba'adeinu. They sent into the Rebbe the Vad